I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone in Houston, Texas. And as you can see, this evacuation of hundreds of thousands of people well underway. It began yesterday. We're getting reports of travel times of 13 hours to get away from the Gulf Coast, as people here in South Texas are not taking chances with Hurricane Rita. They are getting out. Mandatory evacuations pretty well everywhere from the coast right up into parts of Houston, especially east of here. East of Interstate 10 is going to get the hardest hit from Hurricane Rita. We're thinking it will be a Category 4 storm when it makes landfall, but really it is going to be devastating, just as Katrina was several weeks ago. And speaking of Katrina, talking to Ken Reeves this morning at AccuWeather headquarters, because the storm track of Rita has moved to the north and east, the feeling is that there's going to be some heavy rain falling in New Orleans, and obviously that's a concern for folks there. The Army Corps of Engineers really concerned that the levees may not hold up to a substantial amount of rain in the Crescent City. So the evacuation here in Texas well underway. We'll keep you updated throughout the day as Hurricane Rita bears down on the Gulf Coast. Reporting in Houston, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone on Galveston's seawall, and I'm not the only media person here as Vern Horst pans around. It is a free-for-all here in Galveston as the news crews from local stations as well as the national networks and the 24/7 news channels are all here, so we thought we'd come down and join the party. But this party's going to go in the dumper tomorrow, unfortunately, as Rita will make its way towards landfall sometime late tomorrow, early Saturday, but obviously the effects are going to be felt well before that. You can see the surf starting to pick up already, and it is only going to get stronger. Still some locals hanging around here. We saw one guy with a surfboard heading out into the water. You know, despite the mandatory evacuation and what happened during Katrina, there are some people that just will not heed good advice and get out of here. But the media, we're paid to be here, as is the law enforcement and emergency service personnel. But some residents just want to try and stick this one out. In Galveston, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone reporting from just outside of the Johnson Space Center here in Houston, Texas. And NASA not taking any chances as Hurricane Rita approaches South Texas. Everything here is buttoned down tight, and NASA ready to evacuate its employees if they haven't already left the Johnson Space Center. They're going to be getting out today as Rita approaches. Landfall expected sometime around dawn tomorrow, somewhere between Galveston and Port Arthur, Texas. However, we're going to start to feel the effects of Hurricane Rita. The wind already starting to pick up a little bit. Just a nice breezy morning here in South Texas right now, but certainly a lot worse to come over the next 24 hours, perhaps up to 36 hours, as Rita is expected to sit over South Texas and dump an awful lot of rain on this area, and that could lead to some severe flooding all the way inland, as far north perhaps as the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We'll have more from South Texas. I'm Steve Penstone reporting outside the Johnson Space Center for AccuWeather.com. 3, 2, 1. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone, and we're speaking with Galveston County Emergency Management Spokesman John Simpson. John, first of all, let's talk about this new facility behind us. Brand new, and tell us a little bit about your new Emergency Operations Center.
Well, you know, we used to be in this building over here to the left. It was an old civil defense facility, and the ground floor would have flooded in a Category 3 hurricane. So we partnered with a couple of agencies that respond to emergencies and built this $5.5 million facility that just opened in June. So really, Hurricane Rita is going to be our first test of the stability of this building, and we're expecting it to hold up great.
It's supposed to be able to withstand a Cat 5. It doesn't look like it's going to be a Cat 5 coming in tonight.
No, fortunately, Mother Nature has worked in our favor today. It looks like it's going a little bit east of us, but we are anticipating hurricane force winds, mild hurricane force winds, if there can be such a thing, and a good bit of rain and a mild storm surge. So we're happy to be safe up well above ground here.
Having, for lack of a better term, dodged the big bullet, what's the biggest concern here in the county?
Well, right now we're looking at things like watching for problems with potential looters, things of that nature, We've got a lot of law enforcement out patrolling the streets, so the folks who are in other parts of the state watching television and being concerned about their homes, knowing that they're safe, and we're watching after them. A little bit later, when the winds start to pick up, we'll be putting out some news releases to encourage people who are here, who did not leave, to shelter in place, because as those winds come in, it won't be safe for them to venture out. We don't want them crossing any water or putting themselves in danger, and we certainly don't want to have our first responders out on the street having to make rescue calls when it's dangerous.
Well, having been a police officer, I can appreciate that. Hey, good luck with this new facility, and hopefully it's still standing tomorrow.
We sure appreciate it. Thank you very much.
John Simpson, emergency management spokesman for Galveston County. We'll have more reports as Hurricane Rita approaches. I'm Steve Penstone reporting for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone. Vern Horst and I are standing outside of CENTCOM, if you will, for Hurricane Rita, at least here in Galveston, Texas. This is the San Luis Resort and Conference Center, and it is one of the swankest hotels along the Galveston beach. And this is where the city of Galveston has moved its emergency operations center to. The hotel actually built on top of a military bunker that was built pre-World War II. And the media here as well in force. Most of the media that is here in Galveston staying at this hotel. It's one of the few ones in Galveston that is remaining open through the weekend. And of course, Hurricane Rita expected to make landfall by dawn tomorrow here in Texas. The center of the storm around Hill Island to the north and east of us here in Galveston. But certainly Galveston will feel the effects of Rita, as will the city of Houston, where we're going to be later tonight. We'll have more reports coming up. For Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone at the San Luis Resort in Galveston for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone along with Vern Horst, and we are at the intersection of Maine and Texas in Houston's downtown historic district. And it is a virtual ghost town late on a Friday afternoon, a time when normally a lot of people would be getting out of work and getting ready to party down on a weekend. But there is virtually nobody here, just a few people that are staying at nearby hotels. Lots of police cars checking on the properties here in an abandoned downtown Houston area. And one of the big concerns here is the wind that is going to come from Hurricane Rita and the impact it's going to have on the glass windows of these tall office towers in the downtown canyons of Houston during Hurricane Alicia. The majority of the windows in this city were blown out by the strength of that hurricane. Not sure if it's going to happen over the next 24 hours or so from Hurricane Rita. Set to come ashore dawn tomorrow somewhere near Hill Island, Texas, as a Category 3 storm at latest report. We'll have more through the night. From Houston with Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone in Houston, Texas, and we're feeling the effects of Hurricane Rita, really almost wondering where it is. We've had some wind gusts recorded at Bush Intercontinental Airport, upwards of 50 miles an hour. Clearly the worst of the storm is well east of here around the Beaumont, Texas area, but we're getting the wind here. What we're doing right now is what a lot of people here in Houston are doing. We're trying to get some gas. This is the only gas station open that we know of in the city of Houston. And there is a long lineup, I think about a quarter of a mile long, to the Texaco station up the road here. The police have been here. We saw this afternoon when we came back from Galveston. But the Houston PD is here keeping order, and people are just waiting in line trying to get gassed up. We got about a half a tank of gas, as looks like might even have a pursuit here on I-45. Well, I've been in a few of those, and I'll tell you what, that is not a good night for a police chase with the wind and the rain blowing. And obviously somebody up to something here in Houston PD trying to track down that vehicle down, but a little too close for comfort here. Well, all right, well, we'll keep an eye on things here. We got to get back in line and move the vehicle. Reporting from Houston, Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone. Early Saturday morning in Houston, Texas, and Vern Horst and I are outside of Reliance Stadium. The Astrodome off to my right, back behind Reliance Stadium, and right behind me, units of the Texas National Guard that have just arrived from San Antonio, a part of the pre-staging by FEMA in advance of Hurricane Rita. Rita, the North Eye Wall, just arriving on shore as we speak to our east over towards Beaumont, Texas, and it is getting pounded over there. They're getting sustained winds of 80 miles an hour here in the Houston area. The winds much less than that, 30 to 40 miles an hour with some higher gusts. The rain driving in sheets right now. It has picked up substantially over the last 15 or 20 minutes as we're starting to get some of the severe impact, although certainly nothing as severe as what the folks to our east along the Louisiana-Texas state line are getting. We'll have more reports through the night. Right now, as the National Guard arrives here at the Astrodome in Houston with Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone, AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone. Saturday morning in Houston, and along with cameraman Vern Horst, we are back out on the road. And even though Hurricane Rita has now been downgraded to a Category 2, you can see that the wind is still whipping up here in North Houston, and the rain still coming down in sheets from time to time. It kind of ebbs and flows, but the damage here is certainly nowhere near what people were expecting in Houston. Power is out over most of the city. But really the worst of the damage to the east around Port Arthur and Beaumont, Texas, and into Louisiana as well, all the way into New Orleans, of course. We've got reports of flooding in the Big Easy. Down in Galveston, overnight, there was a major fire down there, and the fire crews did their best to get out and battle that blaze under severe conditions. The flooding down there, we understand, is pretty bad. We're going to get out on the road and try and bring you some reports from the worst hit areas. We'll bring you more later from Houston. I'm Steve Penstone along with Vern Horst, AccuWeather.com. AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone along with cameraman Vern Horst. We are in Baytown, Texas on the north shore of Galveston Bay, and I am happy to report that the oil refineries are still standing after Hurricane Rita came ashore yesterday. And all kidding aside, that is very good news. The huge amount of refinery capacity here in the greater Houston area, responsible for so much of the aviation fuel that is used up in this country on a daily basis, along with, of course, gasoline. Gasoline right now in short supply in Texas, with virtually every gas station closed, and you got to wonder how long it's going to take for them to reopen because so many people got out of town. We've already heard reports today of people returning to their homes, happy just to be back home whether the power is on or not. But 500,000 power customers without electricity on this Saturday morning, including back at our hotel. Hopefully it'll be on by the time we get back. We're headed over towards the Beaumont area to check out the worst area where Rita impacted the most last night, around Sabine Pass, right on the Texas-Louisiana state line. Reporting from Baytown, Texas with Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone along with cameraman Vern Horst, and we are near Cove, Texas, just off of Interstate 10, about halfway between Houston and Beaumont. And I think our plans of getting to Beaumont are going to be scuttled by the tropical storm-forced winds that we're still getting here in South Texas, and the sheeting rain that is just stinging me right now. Fortunately, Vern's under the underpass, so he's relatively high and dry, but behind me you can see some trees. This is the first real damage that we have seen from Rita. These trees uprooted last night and into this morning as Rita came ashore, so it gives you an idea of how much more powerful Rita was east of the Houston-Galveston area. In fact, we heard a report on the radio as we were driving out here that some of the roads on Galveston Island are actually dry right now. Certainly not the case here on Interstate 10, as I said, about halfway between Houston and Beaumont, as Hurricane Rita continues to pound South Texas and southwest Louisiana. We're going to head back towards Houston. We've heard some reports of some windows blowing out of the office towers there. We'll see if we can get your report from downtown Houston. For Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone reporting from Cove, Texas for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone along with cameraman Vern Horst. We are back in downtown Houston. What we've been talking about the last couple of days has happened. We've got some windows that are blowing out of the office towers. The Chase Bank building over there, as Vern pans in, you can see the number of windows that have blown out of the top floors. Ironically, one of the lower elevation buildings here in downtown Houston, we don't see any window out of the tall towers right beside that one, but certainly the wind's still blowing here in downtown Houston. Right now, Rita's a Category 1 storm up near Jasper, Texas is where the center of it is. That's northeast of here. And we're still feeling the effects here in Houston, but certainly Houston and Galveston really dodged the bullet last night. The worst of the storm going through the Sabine Pass area right on the Texas-Louisiana state line. We'll try and give you more reports here from Houston as we watch the downtown situation here. With Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone along with Vern Horst. We are on northbound Interstate 45 in Houston, Texas. And as you can see, Texans coming back to Houston and South Texas, returning already despite the pleadings of state and local officials asking them to take their time coming back here. But a lot of people learning that, of course, Houston and Galveston really dodged a bullet from Hurricane Rita. And the fact that the power is on, especially here in Houston and in most of the areas, these people want to get back home. They're tired of being on the road. Some of them spent upwards of 24 hours or more on the highways getting out in advance of Rita. They want to get back as quickly as they can. And really, I can't say that I can blame them right now. This is just a windstorm in the Houston area. The worst of it, of course, to the east, up in the Sabine Pass area and into Louisiana. So the folks already on their way back home here from up north in Dallas and western San Antonio, Waco, places like that, as they try to get back to normal as quickly as possible here in the Houston area. Reporting from Interstate 45 with Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone in Houston, Texas, as people are trying to get their lives back to normal. We're at a Shell station just off of Interstate 45, and the gas lines here, as long as we saw last night when we tried to gas up last night. This is Mike. Mike, you don't even work here, but you're helping out. What are you doing here right now?
Oh, I'm just sorting out everybody out here for finding out where the gas tanks are at so that we can get a straight line. That's all it is.
And very orderly, as opposed to some we've seen the last couple of days. You're doing a great job. You should be a traffic cop.
Oh, thank you.
Now, do you have any idea how much gas you've got left in the tanks here?
Not at the moment, sir. In about 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to find out.
Well, hopefully, you got enough that a lot of these people can get their gas. Was this planned to reopen? Do you know? If you talked to the manager, was this?
I talked to him, and he just, according to I just lived down the street. Came in about 8 o'clock. It was closed. Come back 9 o'clock. We have a line. So,
well, hey, you're doing your best to help out, and really appreciate it. Thanks. Is there coffee in there? I understand. Oh, bless you, sir. Got to get a cup of coffee. It is. I'll tell you what. It's very orderly here. Mike's done a great job as Texans try and get their lives back to normal after Hurricane Rita. Reporting from Houston, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone in Terminal A at Bush Intercontinental Airport in Houston. And as you can see, this place is deserted except for some airport employees. Normally a Saturday afternoon, this place would be jammed, but it is an airport without airplanes. Naturally, the airlines getting their craft out of here in advance of Hurricane Rita. Talking to an airport official earlier, he tells me that there may be some military flights coming in today. Commercial flights are expected to resume on Sunday, and no doubt this place is going to be busy. This place was jammed on Wednesday and Thursday, and really part of the problem was a lot of the airport screeners evacuated just like everybody else did here, and that led to long lineups as people were trying to check in and get through security here at Bush Intercontinental Airport. But the flights are expected to resume tomorrow at the earliest, perhaps Monday for some of these airlines that fly in and out of Bush Intercontinental Airport. Same thing down at Hobby Airport on the south side of Houston as well. That's all for now. We'll have more later. We're going to try and head on out towards the Beaumont area. Reporting from Bush Intercontinental Airport along with Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone along with cameraman Vern Horst. Saturday afternoon, and we are on the outskirts of Port Arthur, Texas, and we have just been informed by the state troopers behind us that the mayor of Port Arthur, along with the mayor of Beaumont and mayors of some of the other communities here in the Golden Triangle in southeast Texas, have decided within the last half hour or so to not let anybody back into the communities right now because of the damage caused by Hurricane Rita, which is now down to a tropical storm and is still dumping some rain and blowing some wind through the Golden Triangle here. One of the troopers telling us that Port Arthur has suffered some severe damage And we've heard reports of the same up in Beaumont, Orange, and Lake Charles, Louisiana as well. But unfortunately, these troopers are not letting anybody in. That includes people that are trying to get back home from places as far away as San Antonio, Waco, and even Dallas-Fort Worth. So we're not able to get in to bring you video of the damage. Suffice to say, one of the troopers telling us even his own home was damaged. Fortunately, his family got out. They are safe, and that's the main thing. But the damage here in southeastern Texas and southwest Louisiana, obviously very severe. But the mayor is making a decision, and not only we can't get in, but the residents can't get back home as well. Reporting from Port Arthur with Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone, and we are in Houston, Texas on a sweltering hot morning. Temperature already close to 100 degrees. And behind me, northbound Interstate 45. And this is indicative of the traffic getting out of the way of Hurricane Rita. We are hearing reports on the radio from evacuees who have been in their cars since midday yesterday, just trying to get out of the way of Rita. Landfall expected not until early Saturday morning. And I'll tell you what, folks, there are literally tens of thousands of vehicles trying to get inland, well inland, as far north as places like Amarillo up in the Texas Panhandle. And it is getting to be traffic chaos here. You know, we talked about the anarchy in New Orleans after Katrina, the unfortunate events there. It's starting to become traffic anarchy here in the Houston area. The freeways and the beltways around this city just totally gridlocked, and even the surface streets here, as you can see off to my right. We'll give you the updates as we wait for Rita's arrival here in Texas. Reporting from Houston, Steve Penstone, AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone. Vern Horst and I are in Pasadena, Texas. That is just southeast of the city of Houston, right off of the Beltway 8 highway. And it is mid-afternoon, middle of the week, and as you can probably tell, there is virtually nobody here. This is a ghost town area. This part of the Houston metropolitan area is the southeast portion, the low-lying area that a lot of officials down here are concerned about when it comes to the flooding and the storm surge. We're not far from the Houston Ship Canal down here. You might be able to see some of the smoke from the refineries behind us back to the northeast. But people obviously taking the warnings very seriously and getting out of here, seeing a few stragglers driving around, a lot of police vehicles up and down these virtually deserted roadways. And I think they're probably thinking that their biggest concern right now might be looting in the days to come as Hurricane Rita gets set to move in. The wind's starting to pick up here. It is a beautiful, hot, sunny day here in the Houston area, but of course, Rita is on the way. We'll have continuing updates. Right now in Pasadena, Texas, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone in Deer Park, Texas, southeast of Houston, and I'm joined by City Manager Ron Crabtree. Mr. Crabtree, looking at the city streets here, is it safe to assume that most of the people took heed of the evacuation order and got out?
I think that's safe to assume. We see very little traffic within the city. I've driven through some of the neighborhoods this morning and early part of the afternoon. There's just not a whole lot of activity within our city right now, which to me would indicate that our citizens have responded as we hoped they would and have taken the advice to evacuate, and most of them, I think, actually started their evacuation yesterday.
This part of the greater Houston area is only a couple of feet above sea level, so obviously flooding is going to be a big concern over the next few days.
Well, the storm surge models that we have seen suggest that Deer Park will be minimally impacted by the storm surge from this category of storm. Now, our other concern, obviously, is the amount of rainfall that may occur in conjunction with the storm. And we would expect to see some localized street flooding and maybe some flooding in residences throughout the city, depending upon the volume of rain that we get.
We all know about the situation that happened after Katrina in New Orleans and Louisiana and Mississippi as well. Ron Crabtree, the city manager in Deer Park, and it's the first responders really that are the ones that literally put their lives on the line in a situation like this. We'll have more reports from the Houston, Texas area. I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone near one of the many oil refineries here in the greater Houston area, this one right along the Ship Canal southeast of the city. And this is a big area of concern as Hurricane Rita approaches. Obviously, the refining capacity here in Texas is huge, especially given what happened with Hurricane Katrina in Louisiana and Mississippi and in Alabama as well. We know that at least 4 of the refineries that were damaged by Katrina are still offline. You got to wonder what's going to happen to the oil prices if any of these ones here in the greater Houston area go offline as well as all of the rigs and platforms out in the Gulf that Rita is no doubt already impacting, as many of them have already been evacuated in advance of Rita's arrival along the Texas coastline. We'll have more from the Houston area. Right now, I'm Steve Penstone. We'll have more from the Houston area. I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone, and we have made it to Galveston. We are on the Gulf of Mexico, and the tide's starting to come in. You can see the surf picking up as Rita gets near here. The good news, I suspect, for the folks that are still sticking it out here in Galveston is the storm track appears to be turning more towards the north and east, and the eye wall is expected to go east of here in Galveston. However, that does not mean that this is not going to get pounded. Think of Gulfport and Biloxi and places along the Gulf Shore in Mississippi and, of course, Louisiana during Katrina. And I think that is what is going to happen here, folks. Within the next 24 hours, it is really going to start to get nasty down here in Galveston. We may be back in the morning bringing you updates. We'll bring you a few more reports from Galveston here this afternoon and into this evening. In Galveston, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone, and behind me is the Galveston seawall, built after the devastating hurricane of 1900, still the most catastrophic natural disaster in U.S. history. And of course, it was a 17-foot seawall when it was built. I'm about 6'3", so you can see in a lot of places along here it is not much more than 6 feet tall because of all the sand that is built up over the past century. Now, fortunately, because Hurricane Rita appears to be headed closer to the Port Arthur Beaumont area to our east, the storm surge here we're now saying is going to be somewhere between 8 and 12 feet. However, that could still get water up over the seawall here. The big problem is that the storm surge is going to push into Galveston Bay on the north side of the island, back behind me, and it is going to push the bay water into the north side of Galveston, and there's going to be some substantial flooding up there. So certainly Galveston not out of the woods yet, and they are still hunkering down for what will be a major hit on Friday. In Galveston, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone on Galveston Beach, and Vern, our cameraman, taking some great shots of the beach. And, you know, every time we come to cover one of these hurricanes, we talk about beach erosion. Well, here it is. I mean, just take a look at how this beach has been ravaged, and Rita's not even here yet. It is expected to come ashore sometime tomorrow. The worst of it may be to the east. You know, you talk about the clean side and the dirty side of a hurricane. Well, the worst of it will be to the east. Unfortunately, that is not good news for the folks over towards New Orleans that are already getting some rain today and may get more tomorrow. But Galveston may not be in the direct path of Rita. Certainly it is going to take a pounding, much as Biloxi, Gulfport, Bay St. Louis, other places did during Katrina. So they're certainly not out of the woods here yet, but perhaps a slight glimmer of hope for the folks here on Galveston Island. We'll have more reports later today and perhaps tomorrow if we can get back down here before Rita arrives. I'm Steve Penstone on Galveston Beach along with Vern Horst for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone along with cameraman Vern Horst in Galveston, Texas on an absolutely gorgeous afternoon. And as we have seen before with Katrina and with Dennis as well, certainly not an indication of what is going to come over the next 24, 36, and perhaps even longer hours as Hurricane Rita bears down on the Texas Gulf Coast. The good thing for Galveston right now is we are expecting landfall of the eye to be closer to Port Arthur and Beaumont over to the east, and that will spare the seawall and the storm surge. The storm surge only expected to be about 12 feet or so off the Gulf, but the problem is here in Galveston Bay. The water is going to surge up into the bay, and the flooding will come from the backside, the north side of the Galveston Island into the city, and it remains to be seen how bad that will be. Obviously, there could be some storm surge coming over the seawall as well. So certainly, as we've talked about, Galveston is far from out of the woods, but certainly not right in the crosshairs of Rita as it was 24 hours ago. In Galveston, Texas, I'm Steve Penstone, AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone, along with cameraman Vern Horst. We're on northbound Interstate 45, just on the outskirts of downtown Houston. And a big concern here in Houston is these office towers behind us. As back in 1982 during Hurricane Alicia, most of the glass in those towers blown out by the wind. And of course, Rita expected to be much stronger than Alicia, even though it is expected to make landfall further east than we had originally anticipated. Both Galveston and Houston itself in for a big wallop from Hurricane Rita over the next 24 to 36 hours. Reporting from Houston, I'm Steve Penstone for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone, along with cameraman Vern Horst, and we are on a feeder road just off of Interstate 45, just north of Galveston Island, and it is mid-morning on Friday. Landfall from Hurricane Rita still well off, almost 24 hours away, expected to be around dawn tomorrow, and already we're seeing the effects of Hurricane Rita. As you can see, the water up to the edge of the roadway. And this is one of the inland bays off of Galveston Bay, as the wind is starting to push a bit of the storm surge already into the bay, apparently. A couple of the local residents who haven't bugged out appear to be liking this very much, and why not? It is well before, as we said, Hurricane Rita expected to arrive dawn tomorrow morning, but certainly the effects are going to be felt well before that, as you can see here on the outskirts of Galveston Island. I'm Steve Penstone reporting for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone, along with cameraman Vern Horst, and we are back at Galveston Beach, about 18 hours from the anticipated landfall of Hurricane Rita to the north and east of us up near High Island, Texas. Right now we're getting wind gusts of upwards of 30 miles an hour, about a steady 20-mile-an-hour wind blowing here as Rita nears the Texas coast. And already you can see the surf has picked up much stronger than it was when we were here yesterday afternoon. And as I said, still 18 hours away or so from the full impact of Rita on the Texas Gulf Coast. And of course, the 100-mile-an-hour winds, the damage they're going to cause, really exponential compared to what we're getting right now with these 20-mile-an-hour breezes and the gusts up to 30. We'll have lots more from Galveston and Houston through the day and into tomorrow. For Vern Horst, I'm Steve Penstone reporting for AccuWeather.com. I'm AccuWeather.com News Director Steve Penstone, along with cameraman Vern Horst. We're on the seawall in Galveston, and we are still well away from landfall of Hurricane Rita, expected sometime around dawn on Saturday. And behind me is the flagship hotel. This one is one of the few hotels in Galveston that is actually built out over the Gulf of Mexico. And we saw what happened in places like Biloxi and Gulfport with the massive devastation of the oceanfront casinos. And you've got to wonder what might happen to this hotel here in Galveston. You certainly hope that we don't see the same thing that happened over there in Mississippi when Hurricane Katrina came ashore. The wind on now up to gusts of about 30-35 miles an hour. The storm surge starting to build in already, and in fact it's intensified in the last half hour or so since we arrived back here in Galveston. The sand starting to sting us. One thing we're noticing too is the intense smell of the garbage that's been washed up on shore here in Galveston, and it's only going to get worse as Hurricane Rita approaches. We'll have more from South Texas. I'm Steve Penstone, along with Vern Horst, reporting for AccuWeather.com.